Hi, gang. Hello, Scott here. Let's get started, all right? It's funny. I feel like I'm kind of in a NASA control room right now and making sure everything's on. It's like, okay, I've got a slides and a camera and the piano and all that. So here we go. It's funny. I was originally going to do this webinar, out in my office in front of a nice grand piano rather than here in my studio, but I ended up wanting to use a second camera because I'm gonna teach you some things and actually hands-on piano stuff, and also we're gonna be looking at some slides throughout the thing, and I've got a couple on-screen things I want to show you, and so I realized that I needed to be in here for some technical reasons to kind of get everything switched in and out properly. So you're going to get me in here, actually in the same studio that I produce all the lesson content for our online piano method. So any of you that have seen any of that, if it looks familiar, that's why. And please bear with me in case we goof something up technically, and the whole webinar is just not perfectly choreographed. This one's kind of a complex one, so I promise I'll do my best. So thanks for giving me, your time this afternoon. It's probably going to run about an hour and a half, somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. And I know that it's precious time and precious attention, but I'll bet that you're going to end up feeling that it was an hour very well spent. All right, let me get off to the slides here. We'll go ahead and, there we go. Now, you want to learn how to play some piano for fun? Like, I'm hoping you'll say yes, right? Well, I solved that. That is what I do, and it's what I've been doing for 20 years, okay? I can unlock your ability to play piano in a musically correct manner and get you playing tunes quickly without you spending years trying to, force yourself to read classical sheet music. Have you ever wondered why it is that so many people seem to have failed trying to learn to play piano the first time around? Maybe as a child taking lessons or maybe as an adult. It's funny because until I got into this, and again, it was 20 plus years ago now, I can't believe it, but until I got into this, I had no idea the angst and the guilt that so many people carried around with them about not having achieved some level of success trying to play piano, right? I mean, when people come up to me and they want to chat about their piano life history, which kind of comically happens to me a lot, by the way. I think it's one of the burdens of being on TV with a nickname like the piano guy, right? Well, anyway, people will come up to me, and I'm not kidding, and they'll say things like, "Oh, I took some lessons as a kid, but I failed." And they don't often say that they took lessons for a while and they got to be playing okay, but not as well as they wanted, or, gee, I had some fun for a while, but I decided I wanted to move in a different direction. No, it's not that. They usually, pretty dramatically, actually use the word failed to describe the entire experience. And in all honesty, it just breaks my heart to hear that over and over and kind of see this forlorn look on everyone's faces. And, it's a funny thing that I've learned over the years that I bet you $1,000,000 if I stood up on some crowded airplane, right, and said, okay, by show of hands, how many of you in this plane have ever in your life taken piano lessons before? I'll bet that probably 80 to 90% of the people on the plane would raise their hand. No kidding. And then, as a follow-up, I would then ask those who had raised their hand, I'd say, well, how many of you can sit down at a piano and have fun playing tunes that you enjoy? And I'm telling you right now, there'd be less than a handful of them left up, right? And this is another telling tale that I happen to know from the years that I spent in the music publishing business, where one of the main products that we sold for this business I was in, we sold this piano method, a traditional piano method, all over the world. And it was used by private teachers everywhere. And in the English language version, the U.S. version of that method, right, out of the series, we would sell about 10,000 book ones a year. I mean, not exactly, but it was about that. So about 10,000 book ones, right? Log that in. And we'd sell less than 2,000 book twos. And that was out of 8 books total, right? So that's 10,000 book ones, and we'd sell less than 2,000 book twos. And believe me, it wasn't because, students were playing tunes they liked at the end of book one, and they're all done taking piano lessons, right? I mean, it's crazy. And we'd end up selling like less than 500 of the other 6 books in that method. And that's kind of a, an inside joke, or it's kind of a sad joke, I guess, in the publishing business, that it's kind of that way with all methods. The drop-off rate is just crazy big, right? Now, before you think that I'm out to disparage traditional classical piano teachers as well, please know that, and I mean this emphatically, gang, I am not anti-piano teacher in any way. But the harsh reality is that the numbers are really dismal when it comes to comparing the number of students that start taking piano lessons at some point in their life, and then you compare that to those that are happy with their piano playing ability. So, back to these slides here. Um, I always feel like I'm in kind of a don't shoot the messenger position, I guess. But instead of bringing that up to complain about the status quo, those figures are what have motivated me over the last 20 years to solve the problem and develop a way to get everyone finally enjoying learning to play piano and just having some fun, right? Now, I'm going to share with you in this webinar the truth about learning to have fun playing songs you love on a piano or keyboard. And I'm going to show you why learning to play the way pros play doesn't make it harder, but simpler. And that any failed attempts you might have had in the past have no bearing on your ability to start having fun playing piano in a very short amount of time. After teaching this stuff for all these years, I understand fully and deeply the concept that time is the commodity, and particularly for adults, that you can never get back, and that your goal is to start playing piano and having some fun playing as soon as possible. All right? So let me ask you this. Did you take some lessons as a kid, but you quit before you could really play anything? Are you sick of dusting instead of playing the piano in your house? Do you have a keyboard stuck in a closet somewhere that you never learned to play, maybe, right? Or, are you a decent classical piano player, but you wished you could play some non-classical styles without having to read the sheet music so much, right? Not relying on it like that. Well, if any of those things kind of gave you a little poke in the ribs, which is why I kind of put them up there, I'm telling you, gang, you're in the right place. Now, before we move on, I do need to give you a bit of a heads up right here, though, and right at the beginning. Look, if you're learning, if you're looking to learn how to play classical piano, please save yourself the time and look elsewhere. What I'm going to be describing and teaching to you today is not musically appropriate for traditional classical piano, period. And two, get ready to throw any preconceived notions of what you might think is, the law regarding piano education, and just throw it out the window, because I have a pretty radical approach that differs greatly from traditional piano lessons, and I'm going to keep explaining all this in a few minutes here. Finally, if you're willing to be open-minded and just let me explain my approach, I'm telling you the time that you invest here is probably going to change your entire belief system, I guess, as it pertains to what you currently know about piano education. And it's hopefully going to really change your life in a really fun way forever. Okay? Now, before we dig in, I do want to make this clear and not in any way hidden, okay? Here is my promise. I want to come out and say this right here at the start. Here is my promise to you for today's webinar, all right? By the time we're done, you will know what it takes to play thousands of non-classical tunes on a piano. Really. And you're going to know the secrets to finally be able to knock playing piano for fun off your bucket list. Okay? I'm going to show you how you can learn to play in days and weeks, not months and years. And plus, you're going to be able to play and do it whether you read sheet music well or not. I'm not kidding. Okay? That's my promise. So remember those things. All right. Now, if you stick around, I'm going to reward you with a little gift, okay? And I have a bonus that is available, that I've made available just for this webinar, and it's going to be exclusively for you guys who stick around for the whole thing. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I promise I'm not only going to make this time very well spent, I'm also going to make it well worth it from you from a dollar saving standpoint too. So let me tell you a little bit about myself now, so you'll at least have some reason to believe what it is that I'm teaching you if you don't have any idea who I am, right? My name is Scott Houston. Whether you know my name or not, most people recognize me as the piano guy, which is kind of the funny nickname I got from my public television TV series that aired for 14 seasons and ended up winning 8 Emmy Awards on PBS. A little bit about my backstory, just so you know how I got to this point. As a kid, I was a drummer who always kind of, had a longing to play piano. In addition, I mean, it was always funny because I'd always say, as much as I loved playing drums, and I did, it was also kind of hard to romance any, girlfriends with a snare drum solo, right? Well, probably like a lot of you here on this webinar, I took some lessons as a kid, piano lessons, that is. But it never really took off because I just wasn't learning to play the songs that I wanted to play. So my drumming career continued to progress pretty well, actually, through high school. I was a pretty hotshot drummer. I was in the McDonald's All-American Band, and I'd played drums for Lionel Hampton at Carnegie Hall at some point. So, again, things were going pretty well. And At one point, I ended up finding myself at this summer camp for good young jazz musicians. And even though I was there as a drummer, at the very beginning of the camp, I snuck away and sat in the piano session for a day or two because I was way ahead of where they were starting with all the drummers, and I just didn't want to waste my time that first couple of days. Okay, as serendipity would have it, it ended up being, with no planning whatsoever, by far, as I look back, the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. Because in the course of that day or day and a half, a really great piano player named John Rad, bless his heart, who's passed away now, he laid out to all of us, wet behind the ears, wannabe piano players, the real secret of how it is that professional piano players sound like they do and jazz players sound like they do, and why it is so worlds away different than the way traditional classical piano players sound and the way they approach their craft, and even more importantly, the way they are taught. And I'm telling you, that day really changed my life, and it started me down this path of playing more and more piano and less drums. So, the good news is that right here in this webinar, I'm telling you, I'm going to share that same secret with you, okay? I'm going to do that. And by doing that, I am going to crush what you think you know, and I've always been led to believe, I guess is probably a better way to say that. I'm going to crush what you think you know about the only, quote-unquote real way to play piano. And I'm going to show you how you can get rolling and start enjoying yourself, again, in days or weeks, not months or years. How many of you ever taken lessons at any point in your life? Okay, I mean, think about this. And then out of those, how many of you, like I was mentioning earlier, how many of you can sit down and play tunes that you love at a piano? All right? Or maybe who struggles with reading traditional piano sheet music? Yes? How many consider playing piano a bucket list item? It's always a big deal. People say, oh, I would die a happy person if I could just sit down and play Misty, right? Whatever it is. Is anybody in here a decent classical piano player, but you're, still not playing styles that you want to? That happens a lot as well. How many of you have a career goal of becoming a classical concert pianist, right? None, I hope, right? Nobody. If you do, you're in the wrong place, right? So at this point, you may well be asking yourself something like, Scott, well, why will this work when all previous attempts have failed that I've given a shot at, if any, right? Well, it's a great question, and here's why I think is the answer. The answer is because the way that I teach and the techniques that I teach are very different than traditional piano lessons, right? I mean, what you're going to have the advantage of is me spending the last 20 years of my life figuring out exactly what works for students like you, i.e. an adult who is not trying to become a concert pianist, but instead is just looking to play piano for personal enrichment reasons, right? And I think one of the other things that makes my method so successful is that I really, truly know your situation because I've lived in it and I was there too, okay? I have been down most likely the exact same path that you are right now. It's just that by now I've got a 30 or 35 year head start on you, right? I mean, this worked for me, and it's worked for thousands of my students over the years so far. This is nothing brand new, and I know it is going to work for you too. Finally, I clearly do not try to be all things to all piano students. I teach this one thing that I'm going to show you today with laser focus, and thankfully I have a huge amount of success with students, I think, because of that. So, to kind of just come right out and say this and state something that I now hope you're kind of finding obvious, but I'm hopeful, I'm thinking you probably didn't find it obvious before we got started here. It's this point. Traditional classical piano lessons will never get you to your goal of playing non-classical tunes and sounding like pros do, right? This is your chance doing it the way I'm going to show you to finally, become a player instead of just a piano student, all right? I mean, just imagine how cool it would be, to come home at the end of a long day and just sit down at your piano and play some tunes and unwind a little bit, right? Imagine what it would be like to be able to just play tune after tune without constantly struggling to read difficult sheet music notation, right? To not be burdened by the reading part. Or imagine how nice it would be to be able to play the birthday song when you're ready to blow out some candles for your family, or maybe some Christmas carols around the holiday, right? Things like that. Now I'm telling you, this next one won't happen in the next, few weeks, but after you've been having fun playing in this style for a year or so, imagine how awesome it will be to just have a bunch of tunes under your belt that you could just sit down and play at any time. for anyone without being nervous or even better, needing to, oh, I didn't bring my sheet music, right? Who cares? You'll just be able to play. So, you imagine a pleasant experience of knowing that anytime you see a piano anywhere, that you could just sit down and play something beautiful for yourself or someone else. That, my friends, is what being a piano player is all about, and that is exactly where we're heading. Okay? Now, I gave you my promises for this webinar a couple minutes ago, so now what I'm going to want to tell you is the 3 secrets, kind of a corny way to say it, but it is. I want to show you the 3 secrets that I'm going to explain and teach you today, okay? Now, secret number 1 is my technique that you can use to play any tune you want within 2 months, okay? Secret number 2, the 3 chords that you can use to play literally thousands of tunes. And secret number 3 then, how by using the technique of secret number 1 and some of those chords from secret number 2, how good players sound like they do by just using a few tips and cheap tricks and kind of pro secrets, all right? So, let's dig in, huh? Let's do it. All right. Now, we all know, there we go, back to the slides. So we all know that the only real way to learn piano, Scott, it's to take years of private lessons, and I need to practice scales and etudes 30 minutes every day religiously, right? Right? Bong! Wrong. False. If your goal is to become a concert pianist, that would absolutely be true. I would say yes. But the truth is, and I know I'm kind of just beating you over the head with this, but I need to because it's such a departure thought-wise. The truth is that assuming you want to play non-classical styles, you've probably been doing it wrong. Okay? All right. So, secret number 1 is the technique that anyone can use to play any tune you want within 2 months. I can hear you all right now, right? You're all like, yeah, right, Scott, sure, yeah. No, seriously. I mean, I picked 2 months kind of out of the blue for this slide because in reality it's often much faster than that, but then that would have led you to even believe me less, right? I love being in this part where you're all going, yeah, there's no way this is going to work. I really am not kidding. Everyone thinks that getting to a point of playing a song is just this, giant mountain to climb, when in fact it's usually just not the case when you do it in our style of playing. The reality is that piano is actually one of the easiest instruments to play, and I know that just flies in the face of everything you've heard or thought probably up until now. But before I can explain the technique of this secret number 1, it's critical for me to prove to you that actually playing a piano is a pretty straightforward thing from a physical mechanical standpoint, right? And that the whole hands-on keys part of the exercise is not why most people fail at traditional lessons, all right? Let me show you a few things, and hopefully, I can start to convince you that that truly is the case, all right? Now let me switch back. Here we go. The good news is that what I've made my life's mission, which is teaching the joys of having fun, teaching people the joys of having fun playing piano, right? I could not do it. It couldn't be done, or at least I couldn't do it honestly, with any other instrument, okay? Now let me explain this. Now I consider myself a decent, not just a smoking hot, but a decent piano player, right? So I've been doing this for 30 years, and imagine me walking up to a piano, because I'm a pretty good player, right? And I play some note on a piano. So I hold my finger out, I can stick my finger out, I have a finger so I can play, and I press down some, particular key, and the piano makes some sound, right? So let me switch to piano here, all right? So here we go. So I'm going to go. This is me. I've been doing this for a long time. Pretty talented, right? Ooh, beautiful, right? Okay. Alrighty. Let me switch back, sorry. Okay, now, so that sounded fine, right? I was able to play a note. Now let's say that you go to the exact same piano, right? You're in here in the studio with me. Hey! You have no previous playing experience or ability. You've never touched a piano in your entire life. And you walk up and you press down the same key I did, right? You do it. You know what it sounds like? The piano makes the exact same sound, right? Think about that for a second or two. I mean, what if we were trying to learn to play trumpet, right? If I was the one with the experience, so I'd put the horn up to my lips, I'd take a deep breath, And I know how to form my lips into something called an embouchure, right? Just right for the mouthpiece. And I'd start blowing, knowing the exact right pressure I'd need and which valve I had to hold down to play whatever pitch I was trying to play. And I'd probably know if I was a really good player, I'd vary my breath just a little bit to create a beautiful vibrato. And I'd have the experience and the stamina to, to hold this note for a long time, perfectly in tune. And da, some gorgeous note on a trumpet. And then I go, okay, here. And I hand the horn to you and say, now you do it. Now, do you think if you'd never touched the horn before, you'd be able to make it sound remotely the same? Not a chance. I'm telling you. You'd be lucky to even get a sound out of it. It wouldn't even happen. And, even to play this game even more, what if I ask you to play some super high note, a la Doc Severinsen, some big screaming high note? It would take you literally years. Multiple years to simply be able to, have the skill needed to play a note in a high register on the horn, right? Well, how about on a piano? Let me switch back. Sorry, there. How about on a piano? So here I am. I was like, oh, I want to play something up high. You know what you do? You reach up and do it. It's no big deal, right? It doesn't take 5 minutes to gain that skill, let alone multiple years, right? Or how about an oboe or a bassoon? You ever try to play a nice tone on a double reed instrument? And your brain squirts out. That's hard, right? Double reed instruments are a bruiser. And have you ever picked up a guitar? There's one. A lot of you probably done that. And you ever started to play guitar, right? You start to do it. Your fingers, they actually hurt trying to get to the point where you can play some chords until you get some calluses built on them. Ow! It hurts for a while. And I could go on and just keep playing this game with a ton of different instruments. But here is the important point, okay? So let me jump back to the slides again. Here is the important point. Piano, at the beginning level is basically target practice. it's the way I like to say that, right? It is target practice. It's this function of getting your fingers over the right notes at the right time. But, and this is a very important but, the piano is doing all the work of creating the sound, right? It's doing all the hard work of it. You don't need to worry about whether you're playing in tune. The piano either is or isn't. You can't do anything about it through your playing. And you don't need to practice for years or gain any special skills to play high or low notes, right? Whatever you're doing, you just do it. You reach up or down and you play it. And you don't need to take a bigger or smaller breath to play louder or softer. You just press the key harder or softer. It's just no big deal. So, for all these physical things that make playing other instruments so incredibly hard for beginners, it just goes away on a piano. It just doesn't exist. I'm telling you, if you have fingers, you have what it takes to play piano. So from a purely, mechanical standpoint, I truly and honestly believe that piano is the easiest instrument to learn how to play, right? You might arm wrestle with me on drums on that, at least when you're not using all your limbs. But I'm just telling you, piano's the easy one. Be happy that you want to learn how to play piano. You picked a good one. And again, that it is only easy like that if you learn to play the way that I teach people to play, like, professional working real world players, all right? Okay, now that I've explained my thoughts and kind of ranted about why piano is a simpler instrument to play than almost all the other ones, now you're probably, asking yourself kind of this obvious question. Well, if it's so much easier, Scott, then why do the majority of people, and I'm thinking possibly you guys on this webinar too, why do the majority of people who have tried to learn to play never gotten to a goal of playing tunes they enjoy? I mean, it's in the 80 to 90% range of people that start that never get to a point of having any fun. And it's a great question. And the good news is that after 20 years of doing this, I know for sure what the answer is. All right? I mean, it's a really funny irony, and I mean funny odd, not funny ha-ha, that although piano players have the benefit I just described of having one of the simplest instruments to play, all of that advantage, gang, it goes away immediately due to the type of sheet music that piano players are typically forced to try and learn in traditional lessons, okay? So now let me explain this to you, right? As opposed to the, one note at a time, meaning, just one note coming down the pike, like, a singer can't sing more than one note at a time, or a trumpet player can't play more than one note at a time, right? So all of their music is just a single note at a time going down the staff, right? Instead of that kind of, pretty simple looking music, and it's what every other instrumentalist and singer gets to read, right? Instead of that, piano players are faced with trying to learn to read multiple notes at one time and two different staffs. I mean, you can see it on that slide. It's so much more complex. And, often they have finger numbers on there. And I mean, on and on, all this hard stuff. I mean, it's really daunting to do that. And for those of you who have tried to take piano lessons in the past, you're probably nodding a little in sympathy right now, I would think, right? I have found pretty empirically that it is not the hands-on piano part of teaching someone to play that ever stops them from succeeding, right? What stops everyone from progressing is the super difficult job of trying to become a good classical piano notation reader, okay? And even worse, no matter how long you continue to take lessons, this is kind of a big deal. It's kind of hard to describe, but no matter how long you keep going on down the road to Classicalville, right? The reading continues to be the kind of the leash that holds you back. Because in classical piano lessons, there's this unbreakable link between your note reading ability and your playing ability, right? You just can't get to be a better player without a corresponding increase in your note reading skills, because you need to keep reading, tougher and tougher repertoire. And as I see it, and I know I'm a crazy outlier compared to traditional teachers here, but as I see it, the cart really got before the horse somewhere in all of these, classical piano lessons, where reading piano music actually seemed to become a higher priority than actually playing the piano, right? And in my mind, music reading skills are simply a means toward the end game of playing piano, right? I mean, I don't have the better way to say that. I guess it's not the end in itself, right? And I'm assuming you guys too, I want to be known as a great piano player, not necessarily a great piano music reader. Does that make sense? I mean, that's something I have a huge problem with, and it's really the way that I think I separate myself, because the way I deal with that in my teaching is, I truly believe, one of the main reasons for just the crazy success we have in getting people playing and having fun in such a short amount of time. I mean, there's absolutely no reason this can't work for you too. You see, by focusing exclusively on only non-classical piano styles, I'm able to completely alleviate this deal breaker of a roadblock that is needing to spend years trying to become a great notation reader. And so that's the first part of secret number one, and how we get you playing so quickly. Okay, I mean, let's think this through for a second. Which would you prefer to read, right? A? So A is kind of something you'd get if you were kind of a beginning piano student there, right? Or would you rather see that one? Let's try that again, right? A or B? Right? A, one more time. Try to see A or B. Better, worse, or about the same, right? Okay. I mean, all kidding aside, I am assuming the majority of you can see what a hugely easier task it would be to try and read the one on the right. Yes? You with me? Okay. So again, at this point, you're saying to yourself, well, you mean I can play without becoming a great note reader? How do you do that? Well, by letting me teach you how to read the style of notation that is, congratulations, musically correct for non-classical genres of music. And it's the kind of music notation that pro musicians use when they're out playing gigs or working in recording sessions or whatever. I want to emphasize, when I'm teaching you, this is nothing gimmicky that I invented, like playing by numbers or play by color or anything else hokey like that. This is the way pro musicians have been learning tunes for, 100 years. It's just that almost no traditional private teachers, piano teachers that is, will teach you this way, because it will not, help you progress playing classical music. But again, you guys obviously decided at the beginning of this webinar that you were not here to learn to play classical piano, right? So, to continue on with my secret one here, let me teach you something right now that is going to go a long way towards explaining how we do things and how this different style really opens things up to beginners in a hurry. And I should mention, and I feel the need to say this, for those of you that are on this webinar watching who have taken a lot of lessons, or you're a pretty decent classical player, I beg you to please kind of suspend your disbelief for a minute and let me show you this, and please have an open mind, because it's just going to blow your mind if you can just get past your current belief system screaming, no, you can't do it that way, right? Okay, now let me show you this. Alrighty. Take a look at this piece of music. Alright, this is the first couple lines of Silent Night. Okay, now this kind of music, it's called a lead sheet. Alright, lead sheet. Looks pretty simple, huh? Now, it's different than traditional, kind of hard to learn classical piano music in a couple of big ways. First, you'll notice that compared to most piano music, it's completely missing what most people would consider the left hand part, right? The bass clef. I mean, if you don't know that, don't freak out about it. But it only has one line of music for the right hand part, which is the melody line of the tune. Melody line of Silent Night being, Silent Night, Holy Night, da 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 da. That part, right? That's the melody. So let me show you what I mean here for a second. All right? Instead of the two staffs like this that are usually hooked together in piano music, you got one for your right hand and then that lower one is for your left hand. We only deal with the right hand. Okay? We only deal with this one. Just the one line of music, see? All right, there. No, hard, crazy. It's like a breath of fresh air. Mental floss. Right? This one. All right. So instead of the hard-to-read sheet music, it looks like something simple that an instrumentalist would play or a singer would sing. You just get one note at a time, reading left to right, line to line, just like reading English. There's no stacked notes. There's no need to read two different staffs for each hand and, all the crazy hard stuff like that. All right? So you've got that. Painful, right? It's painful is what that is. Now, the second main difference between this lead sheet, right, and traditional hard-to-read piano music is those letters up above the music every so often, right? The C, the G, see those up there? It's a lot less complicated. You just have, two main things, the line of notes, which is called the melody line, and then those letters that are up above that are called chord symbols. So when you refer to all the chord symbols in a tune in order, you call them the chord changes to the tune. So the chord changes tell you everything you need to know about the entire harmonic structure, actually, of a tune in a crazy less confusing way than having everything notated for you to try to play verbatim, right, like that. Okay? So to be clear, as a, in-the-know non-classical piano player looking at a lead sheet, you try to mentally separate everything into just two things, okay? You get the melody line that's notated in the staff, and that you're going to play that with the right hand, and then you get these chord symbols. And they're going to be up above the notes, and that's what you're going to play the chords with your left hand. So, melody right, right? Oops, there we go. Melody right, chords left. All right? You with me? That's not so tough, huh? Let me show you on the piano what that looks like and sounds like when we interpret that lead sheet exactly like that, okay? My right hand is just going to play the one note at a time melody line, right? Silent Night, it's going to do that part. And then my left hand is just going to play whatever chord those chord symbols tell me to. All right? Pretty cool? All right, let me try this. Yeah! Sorry, let me switch the shot. Okay. Here we go. So my right hand is going to play the melody line. And my left hand is going to play some chords. And I know you don't know those yet. I'm going to teach them to you in a minute. But here we go, just so you get the idea. Now that chord symbol tells me to play a different chord, a G chord. Okay, go back down. On and on, and on and on, right? I don't want to keep doing it that way. So, all of a sudden, it's a lot easier, huh? I mean, does that I'm hoping that's kind of an aha moment. I'm going to teach you those chords here in a few minutes, so don't lose track or get lost trying to figure that out on your own. Instead, it's really important that you simply understand how it is that you use a lead sheet to tell you what to play in each hand, and to internalize how fantastically simpler that is from a mental standpoint than trying to read some fully notated standard piece of sheet music. It's incredible, huh? Now, I grant you, Silent Night may not be the hippest tune you've ever heard in your life, okay? But, it was easy for you to see, I hope, what I was doing, and it was hopefully crystal clear how I was playing it, right? I was just playing the melody line with some chords. That's it. Melody and right hand chords and left hand. Now, I want to prove to you that even in the simplest form of playing just a chord and a melody line, you can use that same super beginning technique. First thing I'm telling you, right? You can use that same technique to sound great on a lot more interesting tunes than Silent Night, right? Check this out. Let me jump back to the piano shot again. Okay, check this out. Hang on. There we go. Got too much stuff going on here. So here we go. Again, right hand is going to play melody. Left hand is going to play some chords. How about, here I was talking about Misty earlier. How about this one? You know what Nice, huh? Pretty simple. Just trying to do the gamut here. How about something like Satin Doll, right? An old standard, yeah. Right? Melody line, chords. How about a Latin tune? Yeah, there's another, everybody likes Latin tunes. How about Ipanema, right? Girl from Ipanema, one of the most famous ones ever. Wow. How about, let's do, say, Amazing Grace. Let's do Amazing Grace, right? Right. That's pretty cool, though, huh? Isn't that amazing? So see, I mean, you can, if you're playing decent tunes, they sound good, right? Now I know I was playing a few different chords, but the point is that I played all those tunes exactly the same way that I played Silent Night. Right hand melody, left hand chords. Soaking in a little bit, I hope. Now, if you understand that simple process, and instead of trying to read difficult traditional piano sheet music just using chord symbols, right, and playing them in your left hand as they come down the pike, then honestly, folks, you now know secret number one, hokey way to say that, but you know that secret that is something that maybe 1 out of 200 or 300 piano players will ever learn in their life. Is that insane? I mean, for non-classical styles of music, you should use super easy lead sheets versus super confusing traditional classical notation. That's the big secret. And it is just crazy no one teaches this, huh? Okay, let me kick back to the slides here. So, I'm telling you, lead sheets are the reason that no one fails to have fun playing piano, due to note reading problems when you take lessons with me, all right? Under my tutelage, all right? It's a giant breakthrough for my students. I mean, it really is. The deal is you can now focus all your energy on being a great piano player versus depending 100% on becoming a good note reader, right? And it just throws 95% of the difficulty of beginning piano right out the window, right? So now we can tie together the easiest instrument to learn with the easiest notation to read. It's like having your cake and eating it too. And I really want to emphasize this too. It is the musically correct way to play non-classical tunes. This is not cheating. And most of all, I mean, to really cut to the chase, it gets you playing and sounding good really fast. I know that is what adults are after right now, right? So, what does this really mean to you? Okay, you're going to be able to pick tunes based on what you want to play, not based on whether you can or can't read the sheet music of the tune, right? And it's just so ridiculously simple compared to trying to play standard sheet music. And by using the technique, your playing is never going to be limited by your reading ability. Because with lead sheets, no matter what the tune is, they all just get broken down into a one-note melody line and then the chord symbols, whatever the chord changes are to the tune. It's truly the great, equalizer, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's an equalizer that allows beginners to really dig into great music right from the start and not have to be embarrassed, playing dumb tunes like, the Wigwam song. Remember that one, right? And most importantly, you're going to be playing tunes, again, days and weeks. I can't nail down a specific time for anybody because I don't know, how hard you're going to work at things, but we're talking days, maybe weeks, not months and years here, gang. It's a huge point. So, this is a nice testimonial from a student of mine from out in Portland that kind of bears that out, right? Betsy says, I learned more and made more progress in the first week with Scott than I had in over 2 years of private weekly lessons. And I assure you, those are unsolicited testimonials, you know. And that, frankly, that's not a real uncommon reaction from people just starting, you know, because they just get there so much quicker. They get to a point where you can play something so much quicker, okay? Now, if I can try to read your minds a little bit, my guess is that now, you know, you're kind of working down this train of thought of saying, well, Scott, then if it's all based on chords, how am I ever going to be able to learn and memorize hundreds and hundreds of chords that I need to do? And that's a great question, too, that provides a perfect segue into secret number 2 that I promised to teach you. So, here we go. Secret number 2 out of the 3 is that for you to learn a few chords that are just a huge shortcut to getting going right away, okay? Now, because I'm sure this is what you must be thinking, you know, we know what the rules in the law is, right? The law is that you must learn and memorize hundreds of chords before you can get started playing any non-classical tunes, right? No! False. I love that animation. Isn't that the best? I need to drop that a few times on there. I wonder if I can do that. Yeah. That's my new favorite one. Now, I've had a few real, you know, it's kind of funny, kind of nose to the grindstone students who in the past, previous to coming to me, I mean, before they get started, they spent months just drilling through chords, trying to, you know, just be super fastidious and memorize every possible variation. And they were getting super discouraged with their progress. Well, gee, I wonder why, right? They were practicing for the sake of practicing as opposed to really getting practice in through playing, which is, you know, adamantly what I insist on in our method. And that's why I think so many beginning classical students burn out learning and playing scales and exercises from the get-go, right? In lieu of having fun playing anything that they really know and that they really want to play, all right? Here's another nice testimonial while we are on one that really does kind of tell it like it is. Deborah says, I thought every tune was going to take memorizing a huge number of chords. Little did I know the same ones tend to get used over and over again. I felt like I was cheating and I loved it. Right? Yeah, the reality is that tunes don't just have a boatload of chords in them usually. Most of them, you know, maybe have a handful at most. And even better, you run across the same chords over and over again. So once you've learned a chord, you just get a ton of bang for your buck or a lot of mileage out of it for the rest of your piano playing life. So to be clear, you know, being a little lazy or maybe a little less fastidious, it's probably a good thing in this whole, gee, I need to learn some chords exercise, right? I mean, why not spend a few months just memorizing every chord you think there is so that nothing will stump you once you start using them in tunes? You know, you may ask that. Well, I'll tell you why, because it's dumb, right? You know, you'll likely quit before you ever have fun playing a tune you love. And it's important to learn chords in the context of a tune you're working on. You know, we can all relate to that old thing when you crammed for a test when you were a kid, right? And you just, you stayed up all night, or you really crammed. You went in the next morning and you regurgitated it all back out, and you got an A on the test. And then a week later, you wouldn't have been able to answer a single question on the thing, right? It just came in and flowed right back out. As opposed to, gee, you're in your car and you hear some song that was a popular song from your childhood, and once it starts, you can sing the lyrics, you know, 3 choruses deep, and you're like, God, I cannot believe I could remember that. It's because you really learned in context, and it makes the brain cement a lot more, and that's why I only teach chords in the context of a tune that we're using them in. So, key point here is that there might be hundreds of chords out there in the world, but there's only going to be a handful of chords in the tune that you're currently learning. So just learn those. All right. Now, you want to hear some even better news? This is the part where I feel kind of sneaky. Dun, dun, dun. Tens of thousands of tunes only have 3 chords. It's really the truth. I'm not kidding. And even better, it's the same 3. Woo! If you need to take a few seconds and do a cartwheel, I totally understand. Don't be shy. No one can see you, right? You guys can see me, but not vice versa. It's not very fair. So, here's the deal. There are these 3 chords that end up being used fantastically more than any others. Okay? Now, with traditional sheet music, you just keep, you know, trying to read all the notes over and over, time and time again. But with our approach, you learn these 3 main chords, then you start playing fun tunes quickly, and you use the 3 chords for the rest of your life. Okay? Now, I'm going to save you the gory details and about all the music theory part of it, but in essence, they're the 3 chords that are the kind of the basic building blocks of just a huge amount of non-classical Western music. And, you know, even when there are more than 3 chords in a tune, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it is, these 3 will always be, 3 of those 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, right? I mean, it's just this giantly huge shortcut that is going to get you playing more quickly. So let's just learn them, all right? So I'm just going to teach you these 3 chords, the 3 secret chords. All right, so to get started, I'm going to show you the way I like to teach new chords at the beginning. And that is with these chord charts as opposed to with traditional notation. Okay, I got to make this point so that you don't think these are juvenile in some way. So before your brain starts going down this, oh, that's cheating, Scott, path, remember this. Okay, lead sheets don't have a staff of music and a bass clef in your left-hand part to read. Remember? Right, like what you're seeing here on this slide? That doesn't occur in a lead sheet. If they did, you'd need to read something like this, right? That's what we're getting away from. So even if you did learn all that and you learned the bass clef and the notation and you memorized it notated, you'd still then have to translate that into what the actual notes look like on a keyboard, like that, right? Like a picture in your mind of what notes they are. So if your brain is trying to go through this translation process like you see on this slide of, wow, I'm going to turn this notation into really knowing what notes I'm supposed to play, and I'm assuming here, those of you who know how to read know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're doing this thing of, okay, bass clef, that one's all cows eat grass. Let's see, second space, C, skip a note, E, skip a note, okay, G, it's 1 octave below middle C, yeah, and you're going through this whole thing, and 8, 9, 10, 11 mental cycles later, you figure out it's those 3 notes that are on the keyboard in that chord chart. So, I mean, that whole process that your brain goes through is, to me, just a huge waste of mental cycles, because all you're going to get in a lead sheet is a chord symbol up above the music. Remember? It's just going to have a letter up there that says, in this case, C. Okay? So, again, my laser-focused goal in all this is to get you playing well as soon as possible. I don't really care what a chord looks like notated just for the sake of reading the notation. I care about how to play the chord, right? I want to play the darn thing, which is what that is. And, I need to know what notes to press down to get it played, right? So why not just skip all those wasted brain cycles and cut right to the chase and save months, if not years, of your mental time and just learn directly what you need. So there. That's my logic for using the chord charts like this to learn a new chord. All right? So you'll see from this chord chart that these are very simple to figure out. You just need to, put your fingers on whatever notes where the dots are, right? You play whatever notes in the chord chart that has a dot on them. That gray one is middle C. I mean, although you can play them just to give you a little help at the beginning if you've never ever looked at a piano before. By the way, middle C is highly technical. It's the middlest one on the piano, so that'll get you there. At the very beginning, you're going to play chords with your left hand, right? This is a left hand exercise. And so what fingers you use are really totally up to you. Did you hear what I just said? Fingers you use are totally up to you. I think I just heard 4 or 5 brains explode. And another 2 or 3 of you just passed out, those of you who have taken years of lessons, right? I am dead serious with that comment, though, really. Use whatever fingers are the most comfortable to you. And yeah, I know you're still like, what? You can't say that. What about the numbers? And let me show you something here on the piano, okay? Let me switch this. All right, so we got to play these 3 notes. From the chord chart, it was these 3. Now, I'd like you to listen to what this sounds like. Nice, huh? Okay, now, listen to what it sounds like, this one. Using different fingers. Sounds exactly the same. How about this one? Oh, still sounds exactly the same. Same, 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 same. Right? That's it. So, don't panic about the chords. Just play them however you want. Now, I grant you there's a more or less comfortable way to do it. But I don't know what yours is because I don't know how big your hands are. I mean, do you have big, long fingers or you have little stubby cocktail wiener fingers or something? Just figure it out. Get the darn thing played. You will have time down the pike to work on some stuff if you're really struggling with that. But again, the whole purpose early on is play and learn that chord so we can get to a point where we can start playing right now. Okay, so let me teach you these 3 chords. This first one was a C chord. All right. Now, I knew that because it was starting on a C. So you just got this shape. Hit a note, skip a note, hit a note, skip a note, hit a note. There you go. Ta-da! C chord. Now, put your hand in a cast, right? Pretend you've got a cast on your hand. And your fingers are sticking out of it. You can't move it, right? So you pick up that cast and you start it. So your lowest note is lowest finger is on an F. Ta-da! You're playing an F chord. Go up one more to a G. This one, that's a G right there. So there. I know I'm kind of joking, but I'm trying to give you something to remember here. And by the way, I should say this for the rest of this webinar too, and I do this on the TV show all the time. I've gotten to a point for demonstration reasons where I tuck my fingers back so you can see what I'm playing. I don't really play this way, you guys, okay? I mean, you can keep your fingers out. It's just it's harder to see on this piano shot unless I do this. So here we go. So you want to spend, 30 seconds a chord just figuring it out. Each one of them is the same shape. Hit a note, skip one, hit one, skip one, hit one. C chord, F chord, G chord. Woo! And you'll want to spend, 2-3 minutes. I mean, literally, not 2-3 days or hours, minutes. 2 or 3 minutes. Just get comfortable being able to move between those chords. And that's the target practice part of it, right? When you start doing this, you'll go like this. Oops. You'll have some of that going on. But you get to the point where you can just kind of smoothly play. Sweet, huh? That's about it. Okay. Go back to slides. So that's that C chord. Okay. Now, why does learning the chords like this help so much? Because learning any new chord is the exact same difficulty, right? It doesn't rely on the notation reading. It's not like, ooh, that one's hard to read or this one's easy. You just look them up on a chord diagram. They're not easier or harder. Like any two are not either. They're just different. Hey, look, this one has these notes. Hey, look, this one has these notes. But it's not like on a guitar where some chords are physically really hard to play. It just doesn't happen much on a piano. It's great. Now, it's also so much faster to memorize because you're actually looking at the chord, right? You're looking at your hands and what notes your hands are playing or on that chord chart. You're not looking at the notation for the chord and then trying to translate it. You're cutting right to the chase. It's where the rubber hits the road and you're looking and playing it. And even better, the kind of, snowball gets bigger and bigger as you keep learning new chords. And every one that you learn, it just keeps getting bigger because then you're going to run across those same chords in future tunes. So it's kind of a hard thing to verbalize, but you just have to trust me on that. With these 3 chords I just taught you, you now know the chords, and I'm really not exaggerating, to thousands of blues or rock or gospel or country or Christmas tunes or pop tunes. I mean, it's insane. You'll start laughing when you realize how many tunes, just use 3 chords, or maybe 3 and 1 more or something like that. So, you know why it helps. But, again, let's get to where the rubber hits the road. I keep trying to point this directly at you. What will learning some of these allow you to do? Well, it's going to supercharge your ability to learn new chords quickly. All right? And it's also going to allow you to accompany yourself, or someone else for that matter, singing, even before you learn the melody. If you just leave the whole melody out and just play the chords, and you can sing along with it. You know what they call that? Accompaniment style. It's clever the way they come up with those names, isn't it? Now, it's also going to make your playing sound much more professional than trying to read some, difficult left-hand part in traditional notation. And it's also going to remove a bunch of the, the hand independence issues, and this is probably only going to touch those of you that have taken some lessons, but you know what I mean, all the pat your head and rub your tummy stuff where you can't get your hands working separately. A lot of that goes away when you start playing this way because your hands they're coming down at the same time. I don't want to get lost in the weeds on that. So, and this is another huge one. You will start to develop a sense for playing by ear, and you won't need to go out and get struck by lightning to start acquiring that skill either. I'm not kidding. It really does it. So at this point, as I keep trying to overcome your what I know is probably likely skepticism, and I keep explaining this stuff, it's probably blowing your mind if you've ever tried to play before in a traditional way. So my guess is that now you're probably thinking, well, okay, Scott, okay, the chords were fine, and the way you played Silent Night at the beginning was okay for starting out, but how in the heck do you start sounding more professional? I want to sound, jazzier, if you will, or I want to know what tricks they have up their sleeve. Well, that, folks, is where the getting starts getting good, and it leads me to our third and final secret that I'm going to teach you here in this session. All right. So secret number 3 is how pros leverage some knowledge of chords, and then they use some tips and tricks to kind of kick it up a notch and just sound great. All right. So we all know the rules. We've gone through these rules before, that professionals memorize complex and intricate arrangements of songs, right? You'll never be able to memorize all that. It's hopeless. Just give up. Boom. Wrong. That is not true. Professionals don't memorize complex and intricate arrangements. Instead, when's the last time you saw a cocktail piano player reading traditional sheet music, right? When's the last time you were in an Italian restaurant? You saw some guy playing and he's reading everything. We don't. You think they have every note that they're playing memorized? Heck no. Heck no, we don't play like that. All we memorize is the lead sheet, i.e. the chord changes in the melody. That's the real skeleton of the tune that we memorize. All the fluff around that is just window dressing that's kind of hung around that basic skeleton. It's fun, right? And by doing that, you've got the freedom to kind of create a little something unique every single time you play a tune. Okay, so let's make sure that we are all totally on the same page and just super duper straight with things here. All right, sheet music is not music. It is not music. Music is what you hear. That's music. It's not what you see. All right. So sheet music is not music. It's just a type of recording, right? You think about it, sheet music is no different than an audio recording. It's just a way to try to record somebody else's, music. It's not magic. There's nothing, the law about the sheet music, all right? It's no more music than a book is speaking out loud, right? It's a kind of an interesting thing when you think about that. It's a pretty good analogy, right? I mean, do you have to carry a book around to have a conversation with someone? Of course not, right? You don't do that. You just know how to communicate, right? I mean, you get what I'm saying here. It's not like you walk up to somebody on the street and like somebody says, "Hi, how you doing?" And you go, "Fine." How's the day going? Well, it's going fine, thank you. I mean, you don't need to do it. You just communicate, right? Well, if that's the case, then I always wonder why people say, "Well, I can't play for you because I didn't bring my music." That drives me insane. I always want to say to somebody like that, I always want to say, "Oh, it's okay, because I didn't really want to see you read. I wanted to hear you play instead," right? Okay? So, now why would you want to spend thousands of hours trying to memorize every piece verbatim, note for note, the way some other arranger wrote it, right? Why do someone else's arrangement? That's not personal or creative. That's just regurgitating someone else's arrangement. And who wants to play every song exactly the same way every time you play it? Just robotically playing a tune over and over like a robot. I guess that's why it would be robotically, but without being able to change things at all to fit your mood. I mean, I want to make music, right? Ugh. I mean, that's just so unmusical and unsatisfying. And as you'll hopefully tell or see if you ever start taking my lessons, that is the biggest sin of all in my book, is not having fun while you're playing piano. That's just wrong, okay? Now, unfortunately, that's often the only route that people can take when they've learned a traditional way, because you never are able to kind of break from the training wheels of reading traditional music notation. So again, trying to keep this focused on how this affects you directly in your future playing, I want you to know that the way I teach is not based on reading the notation in a lead sheet exactly as written, right? It's just kind of a guide. It's the very nature of playing in all these non-classical styles that the music is just a guide. It's kind of like a recipe, that you're expected to turn into something, and you got to make it turn into something that you like the way it tastes, or in our case, it'd be the way it sounds, right? It's so cool to play piano because we have the only instrument that has, the range to sound like all the instruments in an orchestra, right? It's funny because traditional piano students are kind of locked into only playing what they can read, right? And they say, and they're kind of held back from playing really high or low notes because they're super hard to read in notation. And because, of course, if you can't read it, you can't play it. I mean, let me show you an example of what I mean here. Here we go. If I'm on a section of a tune where the chord symbol listed is a C, all right, let me do this here. If I'm on a C, right, plain old C chord, so I'm doing that. But say if I just feel like it and I want to play some bass note real low for effect to give it some big thing, I can just reach down. I'm playing that one octave lower, right? I can just reach down just by looking down at it. It's not hard. I don't have to read it or anything. Right? Now, if I had to rely on reading everything verbatim, it'd be a lot tougher. Rather than just reaching down and playing a C, right? It would look like that. Ah! You guys have any clue what that note is? Yeah, me neither. I have no idea, right? Here, maybe we should do this again. Here, we'll play my favorite game, right? Here we go. A or B. A, B. Right? Better, worse, or about the same again? Here we go. I mean, it's ridiculous. So you're starting to get excited about this. I hope that you don't need to see it notated to be able to play concept. All right, it's a giant deal. Now let me show you some more examples of how I'm going to teach you to play kind of off the sheet and wean you from needing to read everything just note for note from sheet music. Okay. So, all right, do some of these tips and tricks to give you a peek. Right. I want to kind of give you a view from 10,000 feet. Okay, it all starts with learning the basic lead sheet. You just got to learn the chords, the chord changes to the tune and a melody line. And then you pull a few simple tricks out of your basket to make the sound sound more authentic, I guess, to your style, if that's the right way to say it. And then you kind of wrap it around whatever chords and melody your tune has in it. You kind of layer it on top, I guess. It's like adding some salt and pepper when you need to spice things up a little bit, okay? So, here we go. Let me show you a few examples of what I'm talking about. Now, obviously, the intent here is not to have you doing these along with me in the next 5 minutes, all right? It's not going to be like, hey, let's just do this. But instead, I'm confident that you're going to hopefully have some real aha moments as I kind of do my best Oz coming out from behind the curtain explanation I can, okay? So, here we go. How about, for cheap trick number 1, if you want to call it that, how about just doing the chords in different places, right? So I'll play like Silent Night. And I'm thinking, I'm on a C chord. Got a little space here. How about I play some more C chords? Right? All I did was just play the same chord, a few octaves, right? It was no big deal. And it looks so impressive when you do it. And imagine what it would have looked like notated. Ooh, scary, right? Or how about doing that exact same thing, but when you play a chord, instead of playing all 3 notes together, separate them. Right? I'm still just, my hand's still in a cast, whatever. So if you separate them, it does kind of this Liberace thing, which everyone loves. So you play like... Right? And you do it faster, and it starts sounding like... Right? Now I'm on a G chord. Back to C. C chord, C chord, C chord, C chord. See what I mean? I mean, that's the... It's not a big mental thing or a big mental tough thing to do that, right? Now the other another fun thing you can do is like play a melody line in octaves. That's a good thing to do. And what I mean by in octaves is instead of just playing a single note, play that note and 1 octave higher at the same time. It's the same note. It's 8 up from there, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you go up 8. It's the same note. Do that. And when you play the melody line in an octave, it just sounds really pretty. You do like this. Neat, huh? It's that kind of a bells sound, I guess, for a little bit. That's a neat one. Another really simple, kind of a starter thing I can show you. I'm trying really hard not to do anything that's going to be too confusing here. You can call it a run-up or whatever, but it's basically just playing whatever the melody note is, get to it from a note below it or maybe 2 notes below it. So I would do, instead of just playing da da da, it's either slide up to it or maybe run up to it or maybe 3 notes. Right? Whatever it is, something like that. So that's a good. It really just kind of it changes the feel. It usually starts sounding a little jazzy when you do that too. Not that I think I'd ever want to play a jazzy version of Silent Night, but that's okay. All right, let me switch this. This is another fun one. Do the same thing. Here's a C chord. I'm still on it, but I'm down a couple octaves. Take your middle finger out. So you're only playing the 2 outside notes, and then just move your back thumb back and forth, 1 white note. Right? So we have, and then if you really want to take it 1 step further, play each one of those twice. So you have, then this one, then this one, then this one. So we have like this. kind of a classic old shuffle blues bass line. I was just noodling around with my right hand, right? Isn't that great? So it's just some of these rhythmic patterns like that. What you end up doing is then moving up to the, I told you the C, F, and G were the three chords you'll use all the time. Then you move up to an F chord and do it. Right? And back down to the C. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Now I'm going to go to the G chord. Now to the F. Back to C. Crazy, huh? You right? I'm going to go up to the F. Yeah, I'm just playing two notes here just to make it. Now you know why there's so many kids that start in a blues band, right? You do that type of thing. So all these little things are really fun. Oops, let me shift back to the face. Sorry, there. I'm hoping that, and again, I don't want to blow you out of the water, and I'm not suggesting you learn all that instantly while you're doing it, but that's cool stuff, and it is not a giant mental leap to go from, I already know I'm on a C chord. Well, maybe I'll just decide to do the Liberace thing and separate the notes. Or, hey, on this melody line, maybe I'll slide up to it instead of just play it exactly the way it is. It's just all those little things, they really make a difference, okay? So, you just get a ton of bang for your buck, right? And it's just so much easier than trying to read out. Imagine what any of that would have looked like notated. You wouldn't be able to read that for years, right? And there's no need to learn or memorize anything new. It's just kind of, again, it's just kind of icing you put on the top of the chords and the melody that you already know. And this is really, it's just so different than traditional classical lessons. And that's what's so critical about finding a teacher that knows these things and then has enough experience teaching adults that they're going to teach all this stuff to you and a lot of these tricks and tips and whatnot in a way that's simple enough for you to absorb. So pretty exciting, right? It's pretty exciting for anyone that wants to learn how to play piano for fun, eh? All right, my method teaches you to play your version of a song, not someone else's. It lets you to really, become a player more. And it teaches you to sound like pros do, not, again, hokey playing dumb things like the Wigwam song, like a lot of beginning written arrangements do. So let's really quickly recap what we covered so you won't forget it, right? Just do the quick recap. Secret number one was use a lead sheet versus using difficult sheet music to learn the chords and melody of a new tune. All right. Secret number two was then, learn some chords. We learned 3 chords that really turbocharge getting started. But by doing that, you're going to know the chord changes to thousands of tunes, all right, just by learning those 3. And then finally, with secret number 3, you just start throwing some of these cheap tricks on top of the basic chords, and it really polishes things up. And that's kind of how you get to a point where you're really sounding the way pros sound, all right? So there you have it. There's the 3 secrets. So, did I keep my promise? I hope so. That was the promise I made at the beginning, and I hope you think so. I mean, I certainly tried, and I don't think that I left anything out. You now understand the concept of how it is non-classical players get through tunes. Now, I also promised you in the beginning that I would also share with you a special offer that I'm going to make exclusively to the people who attend this webinar. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to get all hyped up, and I'm trying to get you all hyped up about what this is and how it can help you. You've been listening to me, and you've kind of heard my story, and you've seen how I teach. You've let me teach you some hopefully really eye-opening stuff about the piano, and you know what I've shown you can help you launch your ability to play piano and have fun doing it. So what I want to do now is just briefly go over the webinar-only offer that I promised you in the beginning and explain how it can help you. And, when all is said and done, if it's right for you, then I want you to get it. And if it's not right for you, then I don't want you to get it. Plain and simple. No hype involved, I promise. Sound fair? All right, good. Well, here we go. With 15 to 20 years of real, where the rubber hits the road testing with adult students, and it took me about 6 years of materials development and video production to do all this, I created and launched a very special program called the Piano in a Flash Online Method. Okay, now to reiterate, our laser focus in this program is, to be able to sit down and have fun playing non-classical tunes at a piano or keyboard. to be able to accompany yourself for other singing, be able to play some, fun stuff, whether it's Christmas carols or Happy Birthday or hymns in church, things like that. But most of all, just to finally experience the joy that comes from just being a music maker instead of kind of a robotic note reader. And to actually play some things that sound great and have some fun, and again, in days and weeks, not months and years, all right? If that all sounds pretty good, then my piano in a flash method is perfect for you, okay? Now, when you enroll and become a student, you receive access to the complete method, all right? There's 6 courses in the method from start to finish, and you have access to them for life, all right? There's going to be no, stressful date looming ahead where you're just going to have to get through everything by some deadline. You can work through things at whatever pace you like. Now, because I asked about this all the time, or I get asked about this all the time, I want to be clear that you do not need to have a bunch of piano lessons under your belt to start with my method, right? I mean, it starts at the very beginning for true beginners. Now, having said that, it also progresses quickly all the way through the levels, advanced enough for experienced previous classical students too, right? So let me kind of explain what each course is going to do for you here. I'll hammer through these, okay? When you take lessons with me, I'm telling you, we start playing, not just practicing, on day one. I mean, honest to goodness, you will actually be playing the accompaniment to tunes like Jingle Bells and Love Me Tender in the first couple of days, all right? This is all about getting you to kind of taste, even in the smallest amount, how sweet it is to actually play something that sounds great on a piano as fast as possible. I've just learned over 20 plus years of teaching students exactly like you that if I can accomplish that, then I've got you. I've kind of set the hook, and you are going to be destined to a life of fun piano playing, right? I mean, we get into all the gory details when we need to down the road, but again, as a teacher, if I don't get you a little nibble of what that tastes like right away, I've just learned that most adults don't stick with it. If you're someone that's never taken a piano lesson in your life, there's no need to worry. We start at the very beginning. You'll be just fine. On the other hand, if you're someone who's taken some piano lessons at some point in your life, you'll be just fine too. It's not only very helpful for most people to have a little refresher, I think, for things that you've possibly not thought about for a long time. Beyond that, I think it's really important for people who are a little more advanced and have taken classical piano lessons in the past to really hear everything it's just so different in the way that I teach, and I think it's important to hear it right from the get-go. So, even if someone starting with some previous skills moves through the course more quickly, I still think it's important to start there so you have that same kind of solid foundation, okay? Now, here's some of the things we cover. I'm not going to cover it all and get too far in the weeds, but again, we really get into things quickly that you may not see doing drills and scales and such. So you can see there on that list on the left, you know, what we get into, and on the one on the right, some of the great tunes you're going to be able to play in just in the first, I don't know, month or two, however long it takes you to get through there. It's not long. And by the end of course one, I got to tell you, most students are just ecstatic because they've accomplished more and or even better, I guess they understand playing piano more in a few weeks than they did in their entire previous time taking lessons. So you're finally going to be able to sit down, make some non-embarrassing sounding music, rather than constantly, struggle to just get over the hump of reading music notation well. Okay. Now, course 2, moving on, a lot more fun doors open up since we've kind of gotten a lot of the foundational things covered in course 1. For example, we start right off with a fantastic, blues rock bass line, and they're fun things to do right away. We also get into the difference between solo style and accompaniment style, so it's really great to know because you're going to want to start playing some tunes and probably singing along with them, and this teaches you the really professional way to do that. We also do our first really deep dive into the blues, which is a giant eye-opener for a lot of people and another really fun topic. And as always, we just kind of keep building up your your knowledge of chords, your college of Nords. We also get into some interesting things like how to start figuring out how to walking a bass line, stuff like that. So, and just like in course 1 and with all the courses, we're going to be teaching it all in the context of a bunch of great tunes. And again, as you see these lists of tunes, these are real tunes that are going to be fun and interesting to play, not the Wigwam song, okay? And by doing it that way, I think it helps keep your motivation a lot higher too. You just won't believe how quickly you're going to begin to get some great tunes underhand and to a point where you can just confidently play a few things in front of other people. It's a hoot. And even better, I suppose, you're going to be able to just freak everyone out by by just sitting down and doing it without any music in front of you, right? They're like, oh, look, she's not even reading, right? And keep in mind, these are, again, not kiddie tunes. They're legit songs that people are going to know. So moving on to course 3. This course is where your playing really starts jumping to the next level, and you can start sounding really good on some more contemporary tunes. And that's because we get into some more advanced chord families that start sounding a lot more kind of harmonically interesting. And if that confuses you, just ignore me. But take my word for it, your ears are going to have a ball once we start digging into the things in this course. We start looking at the basics of how to use chord substitutions, which really lets you start kind of personalizing the way you play tunes, kind of off the sheet a little bit more. We spend more time in course 3 than we have previously digging into a lot more detail of how to read some of the notation that you do find in lead sheets. So we get into all the roadmap stuff, the repeats and codas and time signatures. So we talking about getting into some gory details later. We start getting into a few of those there, and we dig deeper into reading rhythms and note durations and all that. So you're at a point then where it all makes sense to you. Another thing we get into for the first time are ballads and some of the terrific simple ways to really sound more pro-like, I guess, playing ballads, and using the arpeggios like I talked about, and there's just a ton of great cheap tricks when you're talking about playing ballads. So we get into all that. One last really cool thing to mention is we also just kind of introduced the basics on how to start transposing a song, and that is a great thing to know, so that you can always end up playing a song in a range that you or someone you're playing for can sing it in, without it getting too high or low for your voice. It's really a pretty advanced topic, and it's a great thing to know as a piano player. So, as a fun send-off in course 3 too, I always like that class. I wrap up teaching you some of the crazy Jerry Lee Lewis tricks from Great Balls of Fire. I mean, it's fun and funny stuff. So, again, great news. I just keep sounding like a broken record, but check out all these tunes that you can choose from that we use through all that thing. And at this point, we're only at the halfway point, and you're getting into all this stuff. I mean, you talk about fun. I know for fact that most people at this point have accomplished at least 10 times more as far as getting themselves to a point of having fun playing piano than they ever did in previous attempts taking lessons or trying to learn how to play by yourself or something. Students by the end of course 3 are really starting to internalize and take advantage of the snowball that has gotten bigger and bigger as far as the number of chords you learn, because every new tune just gets faster and faster to learn because you already know all these chords. So it's kind of a hard thing to describe, but it's magic. And I'm telling you, that really is kind of the secret sauce of my method, that it really keeps you motivated because you're focusing more on playing than practicing. And it's not that you don't get quality time practicing, it's just that you're practicing through learning new things in context through actually playing them in song. So I'm sorry I start rambling about all this, but I get so excited talking about this because I know that this method is the absolute best way for you to get the results that you're going to want when it comes to being able to legitimately call yourself a piano player. So let me move on through courses 4 through 6 now, and I'll quickly try to cut right to the chase. In course 4, for the first time, we started having you do some regular non-song related exercises in each class, just after what I said there. But boy, it's for a really good reason, because I start laying the groundwork for you to develop the capability to play piano by ear, which is really a cool thing. And I'm not going to get into the details, but suffice it to say that we work consistently in course 4 on something called interval training, and that really is kind of the walk before you run stuff you need to get into and master before you can start, really playing by ear, which we get more into in course 5. So having said all that, that's far from all we talk about there. We get into more advanced chord types. We also work on better sounding inversions and chord substitutions. Again, just sounding more and more professional. They're just things that are really stepping up your playing, all right? In that same vein, I also teach you a lot more tips and tricks, like we get into playing vamps, using some blues scale, kind of bluesing sounding notes for color, and a lot of intros and endings, things like that. And as always, check it out. We do it all learning terrific tunes that you can see some of the examples here in this list. Now, The great news at the end of 4 is because you've spent the effort all throughout that course on the interval training, you're really ready to move on to course 5 where we get into playing by ear, which again most people think is voodoo, right? So in course 5 we actually also start working for the first time, drum roll please, scales. Woohoo! Right? But before you all start frowning, let me tell you, it's a good thing at this point because you're going to have so many tunes under your belt. The whole question of kind of can I play piano is going to be long water under the bridge. But what you're going to find yourself wanting to do, by the time you're in course 5, is you want to start delving into sounding more professional, doing things like soloing or improvising, jazz improvisation type of stuff, or being able to play without looking at the keyboard so much, or finding more comfortable fingerings when you're playing tunes and stuff like that. So now that you're finally really ready to benefit from it, which is the stuff that Scales will help you deal with, we work on them. It's not that I don't want you to work on stuff that's a traditional stuff. I just don't want you to do it until it means something to you. So with all the prep work we did in course 4, like I said, we also start dipping our toes a lot more into the playing by ear stuff and identifying chords and bass notes, and you will freak out and amaze yourself once you realize you can actually do some of this playing by ear. It's a fun, amazing thing for a lot of people. So we also keep moving deeper into the blues. We get into some boogie woogie stuff, and boogie woogie is a kind of a subset of the blues. We get into some fun left hand patterns. Get into nicer, more hip sounding left hand chord voicings, which again really make your playing kind of jump up to another level. And in this one, here's a bunch more tunes. We keep working on the tunes, just keep getting nicer and nicer as we go through the course and doing that. So that leads us to the last course, which is course 6. And I know this is a lot of stuff, but I want to tell you about it, right? With course 6, you're really going to be at a point where you're kind of ready to leave the nest, I guess, from a student standpoint. So at this point, I really start teaching you, and I just kind of open the door into some really big major concepts that you're likely going to continue on really for the rest of your life as a piano player. Things like improvisation and all that. And again, not to get lost in the weeds, but we get into a lot more advanced chords and how you can read them, the ones that are used in heavy jazz tunes. We get into, like I said, an introduction to jazz improvisation. We get into more in-depth work on playing by ear. We work on the art of transposing even more. I talk about playing with a bass player, how you can start walking hip or jazz bass lines yourself. We do some bossa nova, some more advanced, two-handed rhythm patterns, stuff like that, and again, with a bunch of great tunes. Through all that. So, at this point, and this may sound corny, but I really do want you to do this because I know it gets a little overwhelming. I'd love for you to sit back and close your eyes for just a second and just imagine how awesome it would be to be able to walk up and sit down at any piano or keyboard gang, anywhere you may find one, and just pick a tune from, 20 or 30 or more of your favorites that you're going to know, right? And then, while never needing to say to anyone, oh, I can't play, I didn't bring my music and all that nonsense. You could just launch right into a tune. You have the mental clarity to really focus on playing it like you want to. You're kind of creating it versus just panicking trying to, not make a mistake reading notation verbatim. And you legitimately are going to be able to play things that sound mature and non-childlike, and you can just call yourself a piano player. Sounds pretty fantastic, huh? Pretty cool? Well, if you simply follow my lead in this course, I'm telling you, that'll be you. And that can be you in a lot less time than you ever thought possible if you just put in some fun effort working with a laser focus on exactly the type of playing you want to play. That, folks, is exactly what my course offers. Now, please know, again, that you are not guinea pigs in any way, okay? This is not something brand new that I've never tried. I've been responsible for tens of thousands, and I'm not boasting. I mean that literally. Through all the TV shows and live events over the years, thousands of people that were in exactly the same position you find yourself in right now, learning how to play successfully and having fun playing for the rest of their lives. I mean, I don't have a magic wand because I just don't need one. This approach works, I'm telling you. Now, throughout the method, you're going to be able to view my individual step-by-step video lessons 24/7 from the comfort of your own home, right? All you need is internet access and a web browser. It's all just delivered right in a browser. So you can use a laptop or you can use tablets like an iPad. That works even better because you can literally just put it right on your piano like a piece of sheet music. There's no need to work around a teacher's schedule or better, travel to a lesson once a week, right? Yay! I mean, you can actually start playing tunes in the first couple of days, all right? There's over 48 classes, 315 lessons. There's 288 exercises in all. I mean, there's just a ton of great laser-focused content in all those lessons. So, I mean, here's one of my students, Robert, who really experienced the early success that, frankly, a lot of our students do. And he said, after only a few weeks of practice with piano and a flash, I can play popular, fun songs. And I like that he said I can play them, not work on them. So, here's someone who clearly was not looking to become a classical piano player out playing with orchestras, but instead was someone who had taken some lessons as a kid, still couldn't sit down and have any fun playing tunes he liked. Then the light bulb went off once he started our course, and things started to click really quickly, which, as a teacher, really warms my heart, to tell you the truth. So, here's another question that you might be thinking about now, and that is, the video lessons are great, but what materials am I going to be able to use as I work through the method with you, right? And how does all that work? And that's a great question, because you're right, the physical materials are very important, and it's something lacking, frankly, in a lot of supposed online programs that are, well, frankly, kind of BS, and they're trying to do things on the cheap, all right? So also included in the tuition for the entire method are 6 method books. There's 3 large song books with 80, 90 tunes apiece. That's where we get the good tunes from. There's a chord chart and a note guide. And I want to emphasize, these are all full-size, beautiful, hard copy books and song books, right? I mean, here, let me see if I can show you a little what they look like on the camera. See if I can hop to that. Oh, there. Here, pull these in. Yeah, here we go. I mean, here's the method books, right? There's 6 of those books. They're all nice. They're full color, and there's all the materials in there. And I go through these. I'm probably going to mention that again, but I mean, this isn't like an add-on. I actually work through these in the lessons. So we literally, you're watching my video lessons, and we're working through all these books in each course. Now, in addition to those lesson books, there are a couple. This is 2 out of the 3 of them. Actually, I don't seem to have the third one sitting here, but these are the song books. So this is where all the tunes that we use come from and get all that stuff. So, I mean, it's nice stuff, and you're going to have plenty of good quality stuff to actually have at your piano and work on as we're doing all that, okay? So, jump back here. So to be clear, you get the hard copy method books for all 6 levels in the method, all right? You get 3 songbook collections with great, well-known tunes. You saw a bunch of those as I was going through each course. And those are the tunes we work on in the lessons, and there's over 250 tunes total in those books. You get a quick start chord chart and a keyboard note guide, which is great help for beginners at the very beginning. For like course 1, we get into all that. Now I use the materials and I refer to them, like I said, throughout the video lessons. So they're totally integrated into the whole system, and we actually ship them as part of your tuition. We ship them for free to your door. That's actually in the U.S. Outside there's a small fee, but yeah, so we get them to you. Now, in traditional lessons where you're expected to buy your own materials, those books would probably cost, not probably, they are, and we've got a price. Those books are $164. That would be in addition to the cost of whatever your lessons, right? You're going to be able to work with me hand in hand as we work through the method book, and we learn great tunes in all the lessons and exercises in each of the 6 courses, right? So we're also going to have real books right at your piano to practice with. It's not going to be PDFs you got to print out on flimsy paper or anything like that, right? There's no need to go out and spend any more money on method books and music in addition to the price you pay for your lessons. I include everything that you're going to need in the cost of the tuition, plus we even ship them to you for free in the U.S. Now, here's a couple more nice comments we've gotten, some testimonials from students recently. Rolf, who's a student in Germany, said, "Dang, if I'd owned this product 30 years ago, I wouldn't have quit playing piano." Actually, I doubt being in Germany he said dang. Whatever the German translation of dang is probably what he said. But yeah, it's a great point. I hear that all the time. It's like, oh, why didn't I hear this a long time ago? And again, it's not your fault. It's just because there's so few teachers teaching this style. And that does fire me up. It just proves my point that, a previous failure trying doesn't have much to do at all with succeeding in my method, because it is just so different than what you did in the past, most likely. Karen Reynolds says, "Piano in a Flash has been a great, fun experience for me." And that's terrific. I mean, I included this testimonial to just emphasize again that this is all about having some fun playing piano. I think that term is playing piano, not working piano, right? I always laugh and try to keep it in mind, and I promise that I never forget that in my lessons. And I hear the word fun used a lot from students, and that really makes me happy, I'll tell you. I'm telling you, you guys, this could be you. There is no magic wand needed, all right? So trying again, keep working you through this mental process to read your mind. Now you might be kind of having this question. All right, well, the lessons are there and there's the materials, but what if I have a question or I don't understand something you're teaching in the lessons? Again, another very good question, and that brings up a super valid issue, and here's exactly how I handle that. All right, as yet another feature that's included in the tuition at no extra charge, and it's really a big part of the whole course, is personal feedback from me for any questions or issues that might come up. Okay, you will never get left out in the dark, on your own. We're there to make sure that you never get stranded. Okay, there's a tab, this feedback tab, and we'll show you how to use it once you become a student. On every page throughout the lessons, and whenever you need some help, if you need it, you can just sending in a support ticket, and then depending on the response that you need. It just depends on what it is, the question. Some I can just answer in an email, but if not, I can call, or sometimes I record things and send it back in an audio file, or if it's really needed, and I've done this plenty of times, I actually record a custom video answer for you to clear things up, and we just keep chipping away to make sure that you're okay and are getting the support that you need. So you literally have direct access, for answers to any questions from me. Now, so you're going to be able to have the peace and security of knowing that, or I guess peace of mind, and security of knowing that as a student, I'm available to clear anything up, or I can help you in any way that I can in the unlikely event that there's something I teach in the lessons that for some reason just isn't clicking for you. All right? I mean, you can tap into the 20 plus years of experience that I have teaching these styles to adults should you ever need it. It doesn't happen a lot, but it's there when you need it. All right? It's really something that I hope you'll find comforting. Here's another nice comment, another testimonial from a student named Pete Schulte. He's down in Austin. And he said, well, number one, I like the fact he says it's a fun experience, but he says, as an older adult, I really appreciate Scott's patience. Learning the piano can be a very intimidating task. Scott's method is a relaxing, pressure-free, that's a big point, pressure-free way to learn for beginners or for those returning. I've got to tell you a charming kind of backstory that Pete has actually progressed so well that he's playing regularly in his retirement village. And his neighbors who kind of heard him go through this process are so impressed that they keep, pestering him to teach him the way he learned. So he's called me, a few times, and we've been having fun discussing, some possible ways that he might start to teach, some of the people in some class setting there in the retirement center. So, I mean, that's the best. That fires me up. Talk about a meaningful hobby for Pete. That's good stuff, huh? Now I would like to address something that people ask me about all the time, which is this. I say, Scott, can you give me some sort of a comparison value, like a dollar value, taking your method as opposed to going to take traditional classical lessons with a local teacher, right? And it's kind of a tough thing to answer for multiple reasons, but one is that everyone is so different, and I have no way of knowing how much effort a student is or is not going to put into it, right? And also, it's really not close to comparing apples to apples, because often you can't even find a local piano teacher that is skilled in teaching non-classical genres like I do. Nor can I put a dollar value, this is another tough one, on what kind of a value to put on the fact that the cost, I guess, in time and travel to go take a weekly lesson, which doesn't happen with my program because you do it from home, right? And finally, my students tend to progress a lot faster because they're not constrained by 1 week between lessons, and they end up moving a lot faster through lessons when they kind of get on a roll. So having said all that, to try and answer this, to give you some comparative value, I really did put paper to pencil and spent some time trying to figure out, how long, if you were going to try to deliver my method in a traditional weekly way, how long would it take to some fictional average student to kind of work through the method, even though it's not done that way. But I also accounted for setting aside some time. I want to let you know I did account for time that, for things that inevitably happen with adult students, like you're on vacation or your workload gets heavy or just life gets in the way or you get sick or something. I mean, whatever. So I tried to take all that in. And so having said that, follow my train of thought here, okay, on how I figured this out. I'm going to try to get to this value with you. So, switching back. Assuming, right, you could find a teacher skilled in teaching non-classical genres and not throwing in any cost for materials that most private students are expected to buy separately, which again we just said are included in my program, and also not including anything for the time and travel to and from lessons, which are not needed in my program, right? Uh, Another thing to use as far as my train of thought, a kind of a conservative average right now for a cost around the country is around $35, and it's actually a lot higher than that in most metropolitan areas. But again, I'm trying my best to kind of stay conservative going through this exercise. So after going through everything that I cover in the course, throughout all 6 courses, and I kind of imagined how long it would take in a traditional lesson setting, my best estimate that I came up with for an average student is that my full piano in a flash method equates to around 3 solid years of weekly lessons. Okay, it's about 3 years worth. But again, boy, I cannot emphasize this enough. I am not suggesting that 3 years is how long it's going to take you, right? My method will likely get you to that point in half the time. I'm just saying for comparison's sake that that's how long it would take if we were doing things a traditional way versus kind of this much faster, more efficient way that my program operates. And again, I'm just doing this to come up with an equivalent dollar value of my method versus traditional lessons, okay? So if you do the math on $35 weekly for 3 years, and again, not throwing anything in for materials or travel costs and time, that equates to a value of $5,460. So there, there it is. $5,460, I think, is a conservative, legitimate, equivalent value to private lessons that my online program provides. So, to recap in the program, here's what you'll get for your tuition if you sign up and become a student. You get lifetime access to the lessons for the full 6 courses in the piano in a flash method, which we now have come up with $5,460 value. All right? And you get hard copy, 6 printed method, and 3 songbooks for the entire course. You get the chord and the keyboard note guide. You get it shipped free to your door. That's a $164 value that you don't need to go out and buy separately. Okay? Plus, you get personalized feedback from me for any questions or issues or anything. And what kind of a price do you put on that? I don't know how to do that. So I say it's priceless, and I say that to my wife all the time. But the point is, it's very valuable to you if you need it, but how do I know how to give it some dollar value? So I'll leave it out to stay conservative again. So again, that brings my method up to an equivalent total value in excess of $5,624. All right? Now that's, I think, a fair number. Now let me ask you something honestly. If my online method did nothing else but finally give you a time-tested, simple system to use, I guess, to learn how to play piano, would it be worth it, right? And if it gets you to the point of being able to sit down and just play 15 to 20 of your all-time favorite tunes without needing any sheet music, would it be worth it? If it did nothing else but let you sit down for the rest of your life and play Happy Birthday or some Christmas carols or hymns with your family and friends, would it be worth it? Right? If my method did nothing else but teach you the skills to be able to easily sit down and accompany yourself or others, would that be worth it? So you could always sing tunes and stuff like that, right? If my method did nothing else but allow you to experience the magic of not just passively listening to music, but actually being a creative music maker, would it be worth it? Well, I hope you think so. And the way I see it, you really have a couple different choices you could take. Choice A or B, right? With choice A, you can get lucky enough to find a private teacher somewhere near you who's willing and skilled in teaching adults all the non-classical genres we're interested in playing. You set up a rigid time each week for you to travel to his or her studio and take the lesson. You pay $35, $40 every week, whether you're ready for the lesson or not, right? That right there is about $1,875 a year. Right? You take a 30-minute lesson, and you hope like crazy that you didn't miss anything because you can't replay or rewind or review it or anything until next week's lesson. Right? And then you try your best to practice 30 minutes a day so your next lesson in 7 days isn't a waste of the dollars that you've already got to spend. Right? You wait a week until your next lesson, and if you have any questions or concerns that crop up, you've got to wait that week until you can get them answered. Right? And basically, you stay on that program for forever, right? When do you say, that's it, I'm done, congratulations, you graduated? It just doesn't. You just keep doing it forever. Or you could try choice B, right? With choice B, you can take advantage of my laser-focused method that, works only on non-classical styles, and it's integrated tightly, into a very student-centric, working around your schedule versus teacher-centric model. You could take your lessons at home, 24/7, no travel time, no expense to and from. You can move on, to a next lesson when you're ready to move on. No more wasted dollars if for a lesson you might not be prepared for. If you're not done, you keep cranking as long as you want until you move on to the next one. You can watch, you can review the lessons along with the books, right? As many times as needed. You can rewind. You can take my lesson over and over and over until you really get it, right? You're never going to be embarrassed playing kiddie tunes like the Wigwam song, right? You're going to do nothing but learn tunes that are legit nice tunes that you care about, and you're going to do it really quickly. And you control the pacing so you never get overwhelmed. You ready to move forward? Great. I'll be there, ready to go with another lesson. I don't care whether it's noon or midnight, right? It's all online. So if you get busy and you just can't practice for a few days, no big deal. It just is not a big deal. If you ever have a question, I'll answer it within a day, the most appropriate way, whether it's an email or an audio file or even a custom video answer. There's no more weekly lesson payments with no end in sight, right? Once you pay the tuition for my course, you're done. That's it. No matter how long it might take you, right? No matter how many times you go over the lessons, you're locked in at the one-time tuition you paid to get started. There's no more weekly lesson expense forever, right? So I'll ask you to ask yourself, what sounds the most logical for you at this point in your life? Honestly, now as an aside, you guys realize for purely comedic reasons, you know what's coming up next, right? I just can't help myself, right? Better, worse, or about the same. Sorry, just couldn't help it. But seriously, it seems pretty compelling to me, obviously. Now, to have a quick reality check, after all this talk about, comparing dollars-wise, this to 3 years of private lessons and the dollar value compared to this and that, I want to have a quick reality check so that we can step back and kind of refocus on the forest, in lieu of all the trees. Because frankly, I think a lot of people, when you're trying to, monetarily compare choice A to choice B and all that, you kind of lose the big picture focus of the goal here, right? Okay? It will not take you dedicating the next 3 years of your life to feverishly taking piano lessons to accomplish having some fun here, gang. It just won't. I mean, are you actually going to commit to going and taking weekly lessons for the next 3 years from someone in your neighborhood and really go do that as an adult? My history of students tells me you won't. It's just not likely going to happen. So I want to make this point that the real value to you of these lessons and of my course is not in saving you some cash versus taking 3 years of private lessons, although that's, certainly a nice benefit. But instead, the real value is the ability for me to get you from point A, which is not knowing how to play, to point B, which is being able to sit down, play, and sound good as quickly as possible. And most importantly, and this is really it, with the highest likelihood of success. You with me on that? I mean, that's what the true value of my teaching is to you, all right? And, if you just give me a chance and follow my lead, I will get you, having fun playing real tunes you enjoy in weeks, not years, okay? It's worked for thousands of people I've taught over the last 20 years, and it's going to work for you too, all right? So with that in mind, you see, I hope, what a terrific value my Piano in a Flash online method is for only $5,624. But I've got some great news for you on this webinar. Rather than the $5,624 they're worth, we sell all 6 courses individually for only $900, which is, I think, a extremely fair price to pay for all my lessons. I mean, for all that content. But, you know what? I also promised you at the beginning of this webinar that, if you stuck around, I told you I'd make it worth your while and then some. So, instead of the individual course pricing, I'm going to add a lot more value to this webinar special by offering you a bundle price for all 6 courses. So, you can get the entire Piano in a Flash method I've been describing for only $699. So that's it. You simply go to the address you see here on the screen, or click the enroll button here on the page somewhere, and you can enroll as a new student right now. Pretty exciting, huh? That's it. So at this point, you really do have 2 choices as I see it. Choice 1 is do nothing and nothing in your life will change, or, 2, follow the lead of thousands who are in this exact same spot as you. Invest in yourself. Take advantage of my experience and success in this one type of piano teaching, and let's knock this lifelong dream off your bucket list. Yay! Right. Oh, and one other thing I also forgot. Yeah, I forgot about that. Choice 2 on this thing is entirely risk-free, by the way. All right? We have what I like to call the no BS 30-day guarantee. All right? In other words, you take zero risk enrolling and becoming a student, all right, and giving us a try. I know from our history with the program, actually, the people who take some action, they get results. And this is not for someone who wants to sit on the sidelines, all right? So I believe if you don't sincerely see yourself making progress after 30 days, that frankly, I don't deserve the tuition. So, try to get that kind of a promise out of another piano teacher, huh? I can see it now. Here's you. Okay, how about I come and I give you, or you give me 4 private lessons for what, $140, $150, and if I'm not feeling like I'm making any progress, you just give me all the money back. Teacher says, no, not doing that. However, like any good teacher, I'm not, and I mean this, I'm not happy, tolerating inaction and then someone saying it didn't work, right? Somebody says, oh, I didn't go, and then they never got in. Because I know if you dig in, it is going to work, and you're going to have the time of your life. So within that 30 days, if you're thinking about requesting a refund, and you don't have to do this, but if you are, let me know, and with your permission, I'll even offer to get on a one-on-one phone call with you and see if there's just some major roadblock that I can clear up. Because we just have so much success with the students that if it's not working at all, there's something probably seriously out of whack I can solve. I mean, at one point someone said they weren't getting it and they sent everything back, and it turns out the guy never even got on to see any video lessons. He wasn't even clear with getting online to see it, so he didn't even see any of the lessons and then said it didn't work. So that's the kind of thing I mean. There's usually some giant oddness going on when that happens, but you don't have to do that. And regardless of that, if you want your tuition returned within the first 30 days, no matter how far you've progressed through the course or how much time you spent in it, we'll refund you in total, no BS. And the only thing we ask is that you return the materials to us, and I think you'll agree that's more than fair for both sides. So next, because I do want to make this webinar only special even more awesome and make it even more of a no-brainer for you guys to become a student that have been on this webinar the whole time, I have one last huge bonus I'm going to throw in to make your decision even more of a no-brainer. And I emphasize this is only for webinar attendees as kind of the big reward and thank you for sticking around. And I assure you this is not available under normal circumstances. But I want to offer you something that I'm kind of teasingly calling the snooze you lose bonus. Right, as a little incentive. This bonus is only going to be available to the first 20 new student enrollments today. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to throw in the entire 13 title library of my Piano Guy One-on-One series. And for those of you not familiar with that series of videos, each title is focused on teaching you one single song really in depth, starting at the very beginning and ending up like I'd be playing it if I was out working a gig. And I'm offering them as an incentive because they're just such a glove fit as far as being terrific supplementary material that you can choose to work on, in parallel at the same time as you progress through the courses if you really want to dig into one tune like that. So each one of those titles sells for $19.95 each. So throwing these 13 in adds another $260 value to hopefully make that decision to become a student even easier. And again, this bonus is only available to the first 20 students who are going to sign up and pay tuition from this webinar. I just can't afford to give these things away in unlimited numbers. So again, if you're ready to enroll, go to the web address that you see down at the bottom of the page here, or I think there's an enroll button on the page, and click on that enroll button and get going. So final key recap. Here's what you're going to get when you sign up as a student. You're going to get lifetime access to the 6 courses in the Piano in a Flash method. All right. You're going to get all the materials. Oops, there it goes. You're going to get all the materials, the 6 books, the 3 song books, the chord charts, the keyboard, everything. It's going to get shipped free to your door. As a student, as part of the tuition, you're going to have access to me, right, for any feedback or help if you ever need it and something you need help with. Even though you may not be physically going out somewhere to a lesson once a week, I'm never going to leave you hung out to dry by yourself with nowhere to go should you need some help. And then you're also going to get our no BS 30-day guarantee to take absolutely 100% of the risk away from going ahead and enrolling today. And you're also, if you do it, and you're one of the first 20 students from this webinar to enroll, assuming that we haven't already gotten there yet, you're also going to receive access to the entire library of my Piano Guy One-on-One series. And that's me teaching 13 great tunes in depth with over 2 hours of instruction on each tune, right? So it's 26 more hours of content. So you total it all up, and you're getting a value uh, of more than $5,800 for a one-time tuition cost of $699. So, gang, that's it. That's all I have for you. I think I've made a pretty compelling argument. So now if this is something that's right for you and you have it already, I think you should get it. And I think you should enroll right now and get started. If it's not the type of piano playing you're looking to learn how to do, and you're wanting to play traditional classical piano, which I applaud you for, by the way, if that's your cup of tea, then I think you should take a pass, frankly, because this is clearly not going to be good for you. And I do want to remind you again that I too, once thought that learning to have fun playing piano was way out of my reach and seemingly impossible for me to tackle. And then I was finally taught the simpler, more musically correct techniques that I'm going to teach you. And together in this online method, we can knock this lifelong dream off your bucket list. I promise. Now, for those of you enrolling today, here are the specific steps that you need to take right now if you haven't already done it, especially if you're trying to be one of the first 20 for that Snooze You Lose bonus. So you go to the address you see here on the screen, or you click the Enroll button here on the page, and you enroll as a new student right now. All right, so you're going to need your credit card to pay that tuition. And if you're one of the first 20, the system is going to show you a message that you'll get the bonus when you click on the Enroll button or you go to that address. It'll say, yes, you got the bonus. And if you are, we'll contact you by email within 48 hours to get you the info you need just for the bonus now, not for the rest of the course, but just for the bonus, because we actually have to do that step manually since those one-on-one titles are not part of the whole online method system. So bear with us on that. If you get the bonus, we'll get to you within a day or two. And then once you've enrolled and you've paid the tuition, our system is going to automatically send an email to the address you enrolled with. This is really important. It's important to find and respond to that email that it sends out, because that's what completes and confirms your enrollment and then lets you set up a password. So from that moment on, you have full access to the courses. We're then going to get your materials shipped out right away, and you should usually receive them in about a week. It's often a lot quicker, frankly, but usually about a week. I think we say 7 to 10 days officially than that. So that's it. I think we're going to wrap things up now. If you have any questions, you can either enter them in the chat window here, or you can send an email to support@pianoinaflash.com. I just can't thank you enough for your interest and your participation. I hope you found this informative, and most of all, I can't wait to see you all in the lesson program as students. So have fun, everyone. Wherever you are in the world, have a good rest of the day or evening. Bye-bye. Thanks for your time.